The stars looked calm from the observation deck of the Galactic Council station. Ambassador Velter stood silently, sipping his morning tea as he gazed into the endless dark. His blue skin shimmered gently under the soft overhead lights. With one hand he scrolled through daily reports on his tablet. For 300 years the Seltheran Union had lived in peace with its neighbors, and today seemed no different, just another quiet day in the galaxy. That calm shattered when his aide Nixara burst through the doors. Her violet eyes were wide with alarm, and she clutched a small communication device that crackled with static and distorted speech. "Sir, you need to hear this," she said, breathless. She tapped the playback button. A broken voice pushed through the interference. "Fragmented but urgent. ... Monsters approaching. Need immediate assistance. Massive threats incoming. Prepare all firepower. ... The message ended with a burst of sharp white noise that made both of them flinch. Velter slowly lowered himself into his chair, his tea forgotten. He took the device and replayed the message once, twice, then a third time. The desperation in the voice was clear. Someone, somewhere, was in serious trouble. "Where did this come from?" he asked. Nixara pulled up the star charts. "A system called Terra. It's in a remote sector, far beyond any established trade routes. Marked as unexplored. There's a note suggesting possible intelligent life, but no official contact was ever made." Velter studied the coordinates. Terra was completely isolated, tucked away in a corner of space no one had ever bothered to visit. And now, someone there was calling for help, begging for it. They spoke of monsters, of war, of something coming. He didn't hesitate. "The Galactic Council exists to protect all sentient life, member or not," Velter said firmly. "We can't ignore a call like this." He turned to Nixara. "Prepare the Harmony's light for immediate departure. Alert Commander Blix, tell him to ready his security team. We're going to help these people." 2 hours later, the diplomatic vessel Harmony's light launched from the station. Though not a warship, it was equipped with reliable defensive systems, enough to handle most dangers. Commander Blix, a towering gray-skinned Vorthok, brought 6 of his top peacekeepers aboard, all equipped with standard council weapons. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, Velter pored over every scrap of data they had on Terra. The system's primary was a yellow star with several planets. One in particular showed perfect conditions for life. Decades ago, long-range scanners had even picked up radio signals, clear proof of intelligent civilization. But what haunted him was that message. The voice hadn't mentioned raiders or pirates. It spoke of monsters, of massive threats. In over 300 years of diplomatic service, Velter had never heard of anything like this. Pirates don't destroy planets. This was something different. Commander Blix entered the bridge as they prepared to exit hyperspace. He stood quietly beside the ambassador. "You think this is real?" he asked. "I don't know," Velter replied. "But if it is, ... then they're going to need all the help they can get." Commander Blix stood tall, all 4 arms flexing as he adjusted his gear. He had a reputation for keeping diplomats alive in the worst situations. Behind him his team stood alert, their armor gleaming, energy weapons humming quietly. "What kind of resistance are we expecting?" Blix asked, running a last check on his sidearm. Velter shook his head. "Unknown. The transmission was too distorted to make out the details. All we know is that someone from a system called Terra is under attack by something they called monsters, and they're begging for help." Just then, the Harmony's light lurched gently as it exited hyperspace at the edge of the Terra system. What came into view made the entire crew fall silent. Massive metal structures filled the star system orbital rings. Defense grids and towering platforms circled every planet. Thousands of ships moved in synchronized formations, radiating control and military discipline. The energy readings were beyond anything the Council had ever encountered, power levels that defied explanation. This wasn't a quiet, primitive system under siege. This was a war machine. "By the void... Commander Blix whispered, staring at the tactical screen. "These aren't victims. These are warriors." Before anyone could speak, the ship's communication system crackled to life. A voice echoed across the bridge, clear, cold, and commanding, in the same language as the distress call. "Unknown vessel. You have entered restricted space during active military operations. Identify yourself immediately, or face destruction." Velter felt the blood drain from his face. This wasn't a distress call, it was bait. Terra wasn't under attack by monsters. Terra was the home of monsters. On the tactical display, red blips lit up across the screen. Warships, dozens of them, were moving into position, surrounding the Harmony's light. Each one was massive, far larger and more heavily armed than anything in the Council fleet. Their weapons, if fired, would reduce the diplomatic vessel to dust in seconds. Nixara's voice trembled as she reached for the ambassador. "Sir... What do we do?" Velter stared in disbelief. More ships uncloaked around them, appearing from nowhere. Terra themselves, they had transformed their entire system into a fortress, and now, the Council's unarmed ship had blundered right into the center of it. The comms crackled again. This time the voice came with a name and a countdown. Had stealth technology advanced enough to hide entire battle groups until they chose to reveal, "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Kane of the Terran Defense Force. You have 60 seconds to explain your presence. If we detect even the hint of a threat, you will be annihilated. Begin transmission ... now. Velta's hands hovered over the console. His instincts screamed. The realization settled in his chest like a stone. The monsters from the message weren't some invading force attacking Terra. The monsters were Terrans. The distress call hadn't been a cry for help, it was a military transmission, meant for internal use, warning of potential threats and promising overwhelming force in response. The Galactic Council had misread everything. What they thought was a peaceful civilization under attack was actually a civilization designed for war. And now, those warriors believed the Council had entered their territory as a threat. As weapon systems across the Terra system powered up, Ambassador Velta felt the full weight of his mistake. In his attempt to help, he may have just caused the biggest diplomatic disaster in galactic history. The peaceful galaxy was about to meet its first true redditors, and it was all his fault. On the bridge of the TDF Retribution, Admiral Kane stood with his arms behind his back, watching the unknown ship on his tactical display. In 40 years of service, he had never seen anything like it. The vessel's design was smooth, almost artistic, more like a luxury yacht than a warship. Scans showed little to no weapon signatures. Either the ship was hiding its firepower extremely well, or it was completely unarmed. Analysis complete, sir, said Lieutenant Torres. The ship's hull contains materials not found in any Terran database. We're testing asteroid clearance weapons, per protocol. Any unknown vessel during such time was to be treated as a possible hostile unless proven otherwise. Open a channel, Kane ordered. Let's try standard first contact procedure. Energy output is minimal, suggesting a small crew and basic life support only. Kane narrowed his eyes. The ship had appeared in the middle of active military operations, just as Terran fleets. The communications officer nodded and activated the signal. Kane spoke slowly and clearly, using a formal tone practiced by Terran diplomats. Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Kane of the Terran Defense Force. Please identify yourself and state your purpose in this system. The Terran translator quickly converted the message into mathematical and scientific symbols designed to be universal to all spacefaring species. But on the Galactic Council vessel, the translation went terribly wrong. The alien AI misinterpreted the Terran mathematical structures, especially those used to describe vector trajectories and energy signatures, as targeting algorithms. The phrasing, intended as polite identification, came through instead as, identify yourself or be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to comply. To Ambassador Velta and his crew, it sounded like a declaration of war. Alarms blared. Nixara turned pale. Sir, are they threatening us? Velta didn't answer immediately. He stood frozen for a second, then snapped into action. Open a reply channel now. He spoke calmly, trying to de-escalate. Greetings, beings of Terra. We are representatives of the Galactic Council, responding to what we believed was a distress signal. We come in peace and offer our assistance. But once again, the human systems misread the reply. The alien phrase structure built on peaceful harmonics and collaborative equations was interpreted as veiled superiority. The emphasis on assistance and counsel was taken to mean, you are inferior. We are your superiors. Surrender and submit to council authority. To Admiral Kane, the message was clear. The unknown ship was not only alien, but now making demands. The atmosphere on the Retribution shifted instantly. Hostile intent confirmed. Muttered a weapons officer. Kane's jaw tightened. Bring main batteries online. Lock target. But do not fire unless provoked. Velta, unaware of how badly the messages were being mistranslated, tried again. Let us speak face to face. We mean you no harm. But by then, both sides believed the other had drawn first blood, and the galaxy was seconds from its first interstellar war. The Council ship's communication had been tragically misinterpreted. What the Calorans intended as peaceful diplomatic language had been translated by Terran systems as tactical military jargon. The equations used to express unity and assistance were read instead as fleet movement data and invasion protocols. To Admiral Kane aboard the Retribution, the message was unmistakable. We are the advanced scouts of a galactic invasion force. Surrender your system or be destroyed. Kane's jaw clenched. The unknown vessel had responded to his diplomatic greeting with what sounded like a direct threat against the entire Terran system. They weren't asking for peace, they were demanding submission. Read alert, Kane said firmly. All ships prepare for possible hostile action. Unknown vessel is claiming to be part of an invasion fleet. Across the Terra system, hundreds of warships shifted course, tactical formations were adjusted. Weapons, once idle during asteroid clearing drills, now pointed toward the alien intruder at the system's edge. On board the Harmony's light, Commander Blix watched the tactical display in growing horror. Red contacts multiplied across the screen. Energy readings skyrocketed. Whatever the Terrans were preparing for, it involved enough power to wipe out planets. Sir, I recommend we activate our defensive systems, Blix said, his voice tight. At this level of energy buildup, it looks like they're about to attack. Ambassador Velta nodded grimly. Do it. And bring the scanners online. I want to know what we're dealing with. Within moments, the Harmony's light raised its shields and activated its sensor arrays. To the Calorans, it was a purely defensive response. To the Terrans, it looked like a threat. Sensors across the system immediately registered the change. From the human perspective, the alien ship had just powered up its weapons and began scanning their fleet with high-intensity targeting systems. Aboard the TDF Vengeance, Captain Torres received the tactical update. She made a decision in less than a second. Alien ship had raised shields. Alien ship was locking sensors on Terran warships. Protocol dictated a firm response to hostile actions. Fire warning shots, Torres ordered. Target their shield generators. Show them we won't be intimidated, but don't hit the hull. 2 glowing plasma bolts streaked through space, intended to pass just ahead of the alien ship. Harmless demonstrations of Terran power. But Terran weapons were built for war. The warning shots slammed into the Harmonies. Light shields, systems designed only for radiation deflection and micrometeorite impacts. The impact was catastrophic. The shields collapsed instantly, and the energy backlash surged through the ship's fragile power grid. Alarms screamed throughout the vessel as conduits overloaded, and life support began to fail. Consoles sparked. Lights dimmed. The ship trembled under the force of the blow. Terran warning shots had done more damage than most Council warships could manage at full power. Evasive maneuvers. Blick shouted, gripping the console as secondary explosions rocked the deck. Get us out of here now. Engines roared to life. The Harmony's light turned sharply and began a desperate retreat, limping toward the outer edge of the system. The diplomatic mission had become a full-blown disaster. Behind them, the Terran fleet began to move. Ships formed up in precision formations, surrounding the escape path. What the Caloran saw as a defensive withdrawal, the humans interpreted as a hostile retreat to regroup. The first contact between the Galactic Council and humanity had lasted just under 10 minutes. And now, the entire Terran Defense Force was preparing to chase down what they believed to be an alien threat. Scout Nakara worked fast at her station, hands flying over controls, trying to gather every bit of data before they jumped to hyperspace. But what she saw on her screen made her blood run cold. "Sir," she said, her voice shaking, "those human weapons. They weren't even the real ones." Velta turned sharply. "What? The attack that hit us, that was just a warning shot. The real weapons are 50 times stronger. And there are thousands of their ships." Velta stared at the tactical display as the Harmony's light neared the system's edge. Numbers filled the screen: weapon power, fleet sizes, energy readings. It was overwhelming. Earth wasn't just advanced, it was ready for war. The Terran system had more firepower than the entire Galactic Council combined. These weren't just explorers, they were predators, and the Council had just woken them up. The Harmony's light slipped into hyperspace. Back in Terran space, Admiral Kane watched the alien ship vanish from his screen. They scanned as activated shields, fired up targeting systems, then ran. He muttered. "Admiral," said his comms officer, "what do we tell High Command?" "Tell them this," Kane replied. "Hostile alien ship made contact. They tested our defenses, then escaped. This might be a scout ship. A bigger force could be on the way." He paused, jaw tight. "Request full fleet mobilization. Earth may be going to war." Neither side knew it yet, but they had just lived through the worst first contact in galactic history. A simple translation mistake had turned a peaceful meeting into the first spark of a war no one wanted. Hours later, deep in Council space, the Harmony's light arrived, limping and damaged. An emergency session of the Galactic Council was called immediately. Representatives from 47 species filled the great chamber. Voices overlapped in panic, worry, and confusion. At the center, Ambassador Velta stood tall, though his blue skin had paled from stress and exhaustion. "The beings from the Terran system," he said, his voice echoing across the chamber, "are not what we expected." The room fell silent. "They have technology far beyond ours. Their entire star system is a fortress. I believe we may have stumbled into a military civilization unlike anything in Council history." Council leader Mindel, an elderly Darien with silver-scaled skin and piercing eyes, leaned forward in concern. "Explain their weapons, Ambassador. Your earlier report said they only fired a warning." Velta raised a hand and summoned a holographic image of the Harmony's light, damaged, flickering, nearly destroyed. "That was their warning shot," he said grimly. "It nearly tore us apart. Our shields, rated for the worst solar storms, collapsed in seconds. And we weren't even hit directly." Gasps echoed through the chamber. From the back, Dr. Quillen, the Council's top scientist from the Zen 3 delegation, stood abruptly. His 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession as he absorbed the data. "Ambassador, may I study the sensor logs?" he asked. "Those readings are accurate. We may be dealing with something entirely new. It's hard to believe any species could build such powerful weapons without us noticing," muttered Council Leader Min. The sensor data flashed onto Dr. Quillen's workstation. He studied it in silence, his normally calm face slowly shifting to worry. What he saw didn't just bend the rules of physics, it broke them. He stood up, voice tight. "Council members," he said, "this isn't just advanced weaponry. The humans have developed an entirely different kind of warfare." With a motion of his hand, a large hologram filled the chamber. It showed two energy graphs side by side, one council weapon, one human. Our weapons are designed for control and defense, he explained. They're meant to erase anything in their path. No restraint, no negotiation, just destruction. A ripple of unease spread across the chamber. Faction leader Grixon of the Corvani Empire slammed his fist on the console. His red skin glowed with fury. Then we strike first, he shouted, before they regroup. We can't let warmongers like these threaten galactic peace. Dr. Quillen raised a hand. Wait, there's something else. Something disturbing. He changed the display. A rotating image of a planet appeared. Earth, the third planet in the Terran system. The sensor data rolled out beside it. Several council members gasped. High gravity, unstable climate, carnivorous megafauna, deadly radiation levels, Mindle whispered. Dr. Quillen looked around the stunned chamber. This world qualifies as a Class 12 death world, he said grimly. One of the most dangerous types known to science. Shock turned to chaos. Voices clashed in disbelief. Death worlds were legends, planets so hostile, most species refused to even visit them, and yet the humans had evolved there. Not only survived but thrived. What does this mean for their abilities? Council leader Mindle asked, trying to restore order. Dr. Quillen pulled up more data, evolutionary markers, biological scans, survival traits. They're built for war, he said. Their bones are 3 times denser than ours. Their reflexes are faster. Their culture revolves around competition, dominance, and force. Silence fell across the chamber. Meanwhile, back on Earth, inside a secure Pentagon briefing room, alarms were silent but tension ran high. General Hayes stood at the head of the table, eyes fixed on the alien data. Dr. Lisa Park, head of Xenoscience, presented her findings. Their shields went down quickly. She began. Our basic plasma weapons cut right through. Their hulls are fast, but fragile. Looks like they prioritize speed over defense. Hayes raised an eyebrow. So, they weren't ready for a real fight. Not against us, Park confirmed. Their weapons barely registered energy readings. Either they're using stealth systems we don't understand, or they're simply not built for frontline combat. Admiral Kane's voice joined the room via secure link from orbit. Based on how they retreated, he said, I'd say they were out of their depth. This wasn't an invasion, this was a recon mission gone wrong. He paused. But that ship's headed home now. And whatever they report, it won't be good. And based on their scanning patterns and failed communication attempts, Kane said, I believe the alien ship was on a reconnaissance mission. They tested our defenses, collected data, and now they're headed back to report to their command. Secretary of Defense Williams leaned forward. How long before they come back with reinforcements? Kane didn't hesitate. We don't know. Their faster than light tech is ahead of ours. It could be days, maybe weeks, but they'll come. Dr. Lisa Park pointed to a section of her screen. There's something strange, sir. Their technology doesn't match typical military design. Their scanners were scientific, meant for exploration, not targeting. It's possible they weren't here for a fight. General Hayes narrowed his eyes. Then why show up during our war games? Why get close to orbital defense systems if they weren't scouting for an attack? Back in the council chamber, the debate raged on. Some demanded an immediate strike. Others urged patience and caution. Ambassador Velter stood in the center, caught between fear and uncertainty. We don't fully understand their intentions, he said. But from what I saw, I'm not sure even they wanted this encounter to happen this way. Ambassador Renth of the Aquarian Collective raised a calming hand. Perhaps we should try again to communicate. This could all be a misunderstanding. Faction leader Grixon slammed his fist on the armrest. There was no misunderstanding. They said they represented an invasion force. This is war. The chamber buzzed with anger until Dr. Quillen rose to speak again. Council members, he said, his voice low and serious. I've finished my full analysis of the human data. What I found is terrifying. The holographic display flickered on again. Charts and visuals showed human physiology, weapon designs, and Earth's deadly environment. These beings evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every single day, Quillen said. They survived through violence, adaptation, and sheer force of will. Their bodies are built for endurance and aggression. They reproduce fast, think fast, and fight harder than anything we've ever seen. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. This is not just another species seeking territory. These are apex predators with spaceships. The chamber fell into stunned silence. If they decide the galaxy belongs to them, Quillen continued, I don't think we can stop them. Chaos erupted again. Delegates shouted over each other as the truth became impossible to ignore. Peaceful civilizations had just made contact with the galaxy's most dangerous species, and somehow they had already convinced those humans that the rest of the galaxy was the enemy. Council leader Mindle stood up and called for order. We will not wait for them to strike first, she declared. Mobilized every fleet across every member world. If war is coming, we fight it on our terms. The chamber emptied in a rush of fear and urgency as orders were sent across the stars. Back on Earth, inside a quiet Pentagon room, Military leaders gathered again. None of them realized that on the other side of the galaxy, war was being declared and it had started winch and error. The underground cities are operational, Martinez reported. All vital systems are active. Civilians believe we're facing an alien invasion, and the aliens think we're about to conquer the galaxy. He looked at Admiral Cross, eyes grim. Both sides are wrong. But the way we've prepared for war, we're going to make those fears come true. 3 weeks later, at the edge of Council space, the largest military fleet in galactic history had gathered. On the bridge of the Eternal Glory, War Admiral Thess of the Corvani Empire stared out at the stars as more ships dropped out of hyperspace. 12 different species, over 300 warships, each one fully armed, ready for war. Commander Yix, his aide, reported calmly. Final fleet count, 314 ships. That includes 47 heavy cruisers and 12 dreadnoughts. Combined firepower exceeds anything previously recorded. Admiral Thess gave a sharp nod as he scanned the tactical readouts. The humans may have powerful weapons, but they are few. They won't stand against this. He turned to his crew. Signal all ships. Prepare for hyperspace. Jump to the Terra system. Today, we stop this threat before it spreads beyond their homeworld. Seconds later, the fleet vanished into hyperspace, a unified force representing 47 civilizations, each determined to stop humanity before it was too late. But in the solar system, Earth was ready. Humanity had used every hour wisely, preparing for what they knew was coming deep beneath the surface of Mars. Fleet Admiral Cross stood at the heart of command. Around him, glowing holograms mapped every ship, satellite, and weapon in the system. Status report, he said quietly. Captain Martinez stepped forward and zoomed in on key defense zones. All asteroid mining stations have been converted into weapons platforms. Outer defense grid is online. Stealth corvette squadrons are hidden across the system, ready to ambush when needed. Cross nodded. Good. They didn't need numbers. They had Earthborn warfare. Centuries of fighting, adapting, surviving. Every lesson, every loss, had prepared them for this. What about the civilians? Cross asked. 95% of the population has been moved underground, Martinez replied. Only skeleton crews remain in exposed sectors. That meant if the aliens hit cities, they'd find ghost towns and minimal casualties. But the real surprise wasn't in the ships or weapons. Humanity hadn't just built a fleet. They'd militarized everything. Cargo haulers had been re-outfitted to fire torpedoes. Research stations now housed kinetic railguns. Even abandoned orbital farms were rigged with AI-controlled flak cannons. Every station, every ship, every satellite had a purpose now. To fight, to survive, to win. And deep in the shadows of Saturn's rings, a human stealth destroyer silently watched the edge of space. Waiting. Elevators converted into railguns. That phrase echoed in Admiral Thess' mind as the invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace and into the solar system. They had expected resistance, maybe a few primitive warships. What they found instead was a fortress. Commander Yal stared at his console. Pale by the void, he whispered, Admiral, they've fortified everything. Planets, moons, asteroids. Each one turned into a weapon. Sensor data showed thousands of energy sparks guns, rail cannons, missile batteries, many more powerful than anything the Corvani Empire had ever deployed. Thess tried to steady his voice. All ships maintain formation. Advanced target primary defenses. The fleet moved forward in textbook precision. Heavy cruisers in the center. Fast attack ships, flanking wide. Support vessels protected in the rear. This was a battle plan that had crushed rebellions, pirates, and insurgents for centuries. But today, it would face something new on Mars. Admiral Cross stood calmly as the alien fleet entered firing range. He studied the enemy formation and gave a slow nod. Hammerfer. What happened next would be remembered as the moment galactic warfare Chan classic center push, flanked assault. Predictable, he turned to his staff. Execute Operation GED forever. The first strike, it came from nowhere. Chunks of rock that had drifted silently through asteroids, thought harmless, suddenly split open. Hidden weapon platforms activated. Inside were kinetic launchers, railguns the size of buildings, firing metal rods at near light speed. No explosions. Just pure impact. A single rod hit a Council dreadnought and vaporized it. No shields could stop it. These weren't energy weapons. These were physics. Ships at the front of the Council formation were torn apart before they could react. Scatter. Evasive maneuvers. Thess shouted as the deck shook. Before they could reposition, the second wave hit. Human stealth corvettes decloaked across the asteroid belt, silent invisible predators. Each one struck with surgical precision, aiming at engines, weapons, bridge controls. Then they vanished. No sensor could track them. No formation could defend against them. The aliens were fighting ghosts. On board the Swift Justice, Captain Vextron watched helplessly. Council ships were exploding or drifting lifeless, burning. Admiral, he whispered, we must retreat. We cannot fight an enemy we cannot even see. Admiral Thess gritted his teeth. He wanted to argue, but the tactical display was unforgiving. Half the fleet gone in under 5 minutes, and the humans, they hadn't even sent their main fleet yet. 15 minutes. That's how long it took. Over half the Council fleet was gone. The humans hadn't just defended their system, they had redefined war itself. Alien ships burned, floated helplessly, or scattered into retreat. Human losses minimal. They weren't facing a conventional military. They were facing a species that had turned war into an art form. "Fall back," Admiral Thess finally ordered, voice tight with frustration. "All ships, retreat to the edge of the system. Defensive formation. Prepare for pursuit." But the humans didn't follow. They didn't need to. Instead, the entire solar system lit up a synchronized barrage from every hidden weapons platform. It was a wall of fire, an invisible line drawn across space. No ship could cross it. The message was clear. "We could destroy you," the humans were saying, "but we're letting you go." The surviving Council ships turned and limped toward the hyperspace exit, carrying home a nightmare. Humanity was not just another spacefaring race. They were predators, and not even the united power of the galaxy could defeat them. Back on the flagship, Admiral Thess composed a priority message to all Council worlds. "The humans are not the threat we thought. They are defenders, but they are more dangerous than anything we've ever faced. I strongly recommend we open talks before they bring this war to us." On Mars, Admiral Cross stood silent in his war room, watching the alien fleet retreat. His officers celebrated. He did in single quotes T. There was no joy in this. The humans had won, but in doing so they had isolated themselves. The galaxy now saw them not as allies but as monsters. The real war hadn't ended. It had just changed shape. Days later, across the Galaxy Council systems buzzed with fear and confusion. Worlds that had never known war now feared invasion. Then came the sightings. Human ships, appearing near shipyards, hovering by trade routes, observing capital systems, but they didn't attack. They watched, they recorded, then vanished. "They're not invaders," said one Council ambassador. "They're scouts, watching everything, measuring everything." In the Council chamber, Dr. Quillen, exhausted, sleep-deprived, stood before the delegates. He delivered a truth no one wanted to hear. Humans don't fight to conquer. They fight to understand, to study their enemy, and when they finally decide to strike, it's single quotes already too late to stop them. The human strategy was terrifying not just because it was powerful, but because it was so precise. Every ship that entered Council space acted like a floating lab. They scanned everything. Fleet movements, defense grids, factory outputs, even where people lived. It was like watching scientists study an enemy before deciding how to defeat them, and it looked more and more like a pre-invasion map, but on Earth. Far from the front lines, something unexpected happened. Dr. Lisa Parktyre, focused and relentless, was working with her team around the clock. She had been analyzing the original signal that started this entire war, and now, staring at her screen, she froze. It wasn't a distress call, it was a mistake. She ran to Fleet Command, holding a tablet covered in translation data. "Admiral Cross," she said, storming into the war room. "I need to speak with you now." Cross didn't even look up. "If this isn't about alien defenses, it'll have to wait. We're planning phase 2. Lisa stepped closer, her voice sharp. "Sir, that original signal, it wasn't a cry for help, it was one of ours." Now Cross looked up. The room went quiet. "Say that again." Lisa tapped her tablet, and the translation played. "Station Omega 7 to Central Command. Incoming asteroid cluster. Requesting clearance to use heavy artillery on approach. Monsters moving fast. Need full firepower." She looked up. "They thought we were under attack. They thought we needed help." The officers around the room stared in disbelief. It had all been a misunderstanding. The aliens didn't come to conquer, they came to help. Cross asked, almost dreading the answer. "And how did we respond?" Lisa sighed. "We told them to identify themselves or be destroyed." Their translators read that as a demand to surrender, and their reply, a message offering support, which we read as a declaration of war elsewhere, on the Council homeworld, Ambassador Volta stood before a packed chamber of leaders. He had been digging through human messages, trying to understand what had gone wrong. Now he was sure. "I believe we've made a terrible mistake," he said quietly. The room froze. "The humans aren't invaders. They think we attacked them. They see us as the aggressors." Dr. Quillen looked up from his station, confused. "That doesn't make sense. We responded to a distress call." Velta shook his head and brought up the original transmission. Using the corrected translation software, he played it again. "There was no distress call," he said. "It was a routine message about clearing asteroids." The room fell silent. "When we showed up to help," Velta continued, "the humans thought we were the first wave of an invasion." The truth hit the Council chamber like a punch to the chest. 47 civilizations had gone to war with a species that believed it was defending itself. The humans hadn't fought to conquer. They had fought because they thought the galaxy was attacking them. Now the biggest challenge wasn't winning the war. It was figuring out how to end a fight neither side had meant to start. Both had gone too far to simply walk away. Human ships kept scouting Council space. Council worlds kept preparing for an attack that might never come. Then came an unexpected breakthrough. War Admiral Thanes, still stinging from his defeat, but deeply impressed by the humans, asked to meet with Admiral Cross in person. breaking all standard rules. Cross agreed. They met on a neutral abandoned research station on the edge of both territories. Each brought only a small escort. Both men looked tired, drained by a war they didn't fully understand, and both were curious about the enemy they had nearly destroyed. "Your people fight with incredible skill," Francis said, as they sat at a plain metal table. "We've never seen tactics like yours." Cross nodded. "Your side fought with courage and honor. We respected your willingness to face impossible odds to humanity's history on a hostile world. Had taught them to expect aggression from the unknown. Defend your people." For the first time, the two leaders were truly listening to each other. Francis explained that the council had come to help what they thought was a desperate civilization under attack. Cross explained. "We've been fighting a war that neither of us wanted," Cross said quietly. "Maybe," Francis said, "this war still taught us something valuable." The two men looked at each other and saw what the future could be. Humanity needed allies in a galaxy that now feared them. The council needed protection in a galaxy more dangerous than they had realized. 6 months later, a peace agreement was signed. But this wasn't a typical treaty. Humanity joined the Galactic Council not as rulers, but as its unofficial defenders. Whenever the Council faced a threat it couldn't handle, Earth would answer the call. That test came sooner than anyone expected. Long-range sensors picked up a fleet entering the galaxy from deep space. These ships were unlike anything anyone had seen before. They ignored all messages and destroyed everything in their path. Admiral Cross stood tall on the bridge of his flagship. All around him, human and alien ships formed a united front to former enemies now preparing to fight side by side. Next to him, War Admiral Francis gave quiet orders to the Council fleet, directing the ships that had once aimed their weapons at Earth. Cross looked at the approaching enemy fleet on the screen. "This," he said calmly, "is what we were meant to do. Not fight each other, but stand together against the real threat." What started as the galaxy's worst misunderstanding had turned into its strongest alliance. The species once feared as ruthless invaders had now become the defenders of all. And when the true monsters finally emerged, creatures from the dark void beyond the stars, they didn't find frightened worlds waiting to fall. They found warriors and builders, human and alien, standing united, ready to protect everything they had built together.